Our last objective for Chapter 1, Section 1 is to determine what living things need to survive. In other words, what does a living thing need to do in order to keep on living? You've probably gone over some basic human needs in previous classes you've had, but we are going to apply these to all living things, so our categories are going to be much broader in that sense. So these are the four conditions that need to be met in order to stay living or to survive. So needs for any organism out there, they all need food, they all need water, they all need a living space, they all need stable internal conditions. In our following slides, we'll go more detail into them, starting with food. Organisms need a source of energy. Energy normally comes from sunlight, but you can't really process sunlight. Well, can you? But we do have other organisms that can on our planet. So we do have organisms that need energy to, well, all organisms need energy to live, but we do have organisms that can get energy from sunlight. For example, plants. Plants make their own energy from sunlight, and therefore they get food from being exposed to sunlight, and they have the internal conditions to make that food. Once they make that food, we have animals, other organisms such as animals, come and eat those plants. You probably have eaten plants to get energy, especially if you eat vegetables or fruits. But other animals will eat them as well, and we even normally tend to eat those other animals that eat them. So we can get through the food chain our different energy sources. Again, they are all rooting from sunlight. We do break these into two categories. You have autotrophs. Autotrophic organisms are the ones that can make their own food. This usually gets help from the sun, but there are organisms that live in places such as hydrothermal vents that can get it from the heat, from the molten core of the molten mantle, not the core, yeah, of the Earth. Examples of these are your plants. You will get, for example, the sunflowers there you see do process sun's energy to make glucose, which is the food they use. There's also up here you can see autotrophic bacteria and even the algae that grow in ponds. The greener ones and even the redder ones tend to use photosynthesis. The other end is the heterotrophs. These are like you and me. These are mostly your animals, your fungus, and some other bacterias that cannot process the sun's light to make glucose and therefore have to eat organisms that do process the sun, or again, organisms that have eaten these organisms. So you do see our little hamster down there eating fruits to get its energy, and you do see our shark not so much eating a plant, but another heterotroph to get its energy from. But it all still roots back to the sun, giving us all our energy. Our next need is water. Water is used for a variety of different functions in our systems and in organisms. Number one is to obtain chemicals. Water is our universal solvent, meaning it dissolves most chemicals and therefore helps you break down food and gets all those chemicals, your carbohydrates, your proteins, your lipids, all that we mentioned earlier. Water is also necessary for growth, and it is also used to help maintain your internal conditions, which we'll get to in a second. It's also used to transport things, those chemicals, throughout your body, and plays a vital role in reproduction as well. So water is very important. Some normal just statistics or other facts about water that's important to know is that water does dissolve most chemicals. This again leads us to calling it the universal solvent. It's important to know that 90% of the liquid part of your blood is water, so that goes for that transportation of materials throughout your body. And most living things can only live a few days without water. I'm pretty sure you've heard that humans can survive up to like 3 days without water is normally what the statistic says. Next is living space. These are the surroundings that you live in. This is also very limited to population size. So if you're an organism and you like to reproduce a lot, you might run out of living space. It's a big concern for some things. You and I normally live in houses that we build, or depending on your culture, different other structures. But other organisms must find these in nature. For example, you got your owl living in your tree. Different organisms tend to live in different environments. Your living space must provide for that organism, though, or else it will not survive. For example, if you take me and throw me in a volcano, I'm probably not going to live too long. I can't survive in that environment. Our last one is stable internal conditions. Our other word for this is homeostasis. This is your ability to maintain these stable internal conditions. These conditions vary greatly. Just to list a few, we do have body temperature. You are warm-blooded, so therefore you can manage that temperature. However, snakes, for example, are cold-blooded, and therefore they have to lie in the sun to get their heat. This also goes with digestion, your ability to process that food. Again, if you can't do that, you can't actually process the energy you're getting from the food, then you're not going to survive very long. This also goes into blood sugar. With people with diabetes have to manage that because their body no longer can. Through insulin shots, you also have your pH of your blood. You don't want to be too acidic or alkaline. And you also have water balance.